All right, well, we're here today with Brian O'Rourke with the Real Estate Book on the Delaware Real Estate Show. And, man, we're talking about advertising your real estate, advertising yourself. And I saw some stuff this week in the real estate news. I was looking for some new things to talk about. And, of course, who pops up? Donald Trump. He was supposed to be here this week, but he had to... He was going to announce his presidency thing, but he had to go take credit.
He certainly knows real estate.
He certainly knows real estate, for good, bad, or indifferent, whatever it is, you know?
I think that's one of the reasons why he got involved. There were some issues going on, and the values were down, so if he could go in there and say his piece, whether or not he's going to run or not, that may have an influence on increasing the value of his properties down the line.
Hey, it works for everybody. If our country's on top of the world again, you know, and we get back to where we were, it's good for everybody. It really is. This week, he wasn't in such a good light. He got in trouble. He was selling infomercials to hopeful apprentices as a promised opportunity to be the next apprentice and learn insider secrets of real estate. But the educational classes that people bought into actually turned out to be infomercials, more or less.
So was this part of his Celebrity Apprentice show? Or
No. This is part of Trump University.
Okay.
There was a girl who was a fashion designer in California. She bought into the program because basically Trump's name was on it. You figure it's got to be a good program. You're going to learn something here. This guy knows what he's doing, right? I mean, if I want to learn something about real estate advertising, I'd have Brian O'Rourke from the Real Estate Book here on the show. So that's what we did. If I want to learn something about being the biggest real estate developer and guru in the world, I'd have Donald Trump over. So you think, you know, with the Trump name on it, you're gonna get what you pay for. But throughout the course, she was pressured to increase the credit card limits and drop $35,000 on the Trump Gold Elite course, which promised hand-picked mentors and more education. She said she had fallen short of cash with her business was down, just like everybody else. She signed up for a $1,500 course that promised the Trump Power Team to help her learn real estate from the master. So it sounds like she paid $1,500 for a timeshare demonstration.
Yeah, I don't know what the story is with that, but that's bad PR for Trump when he doesn't need any more bad
Is
PR.
Is there any such a thing as bad PR for Trump? I mean, there's two things Donald Trump knows. One is real estate, and the other is how to work the media.
Yeah, he does have kind of a Teflon coat on him. Nothing seems to get him down, but that doesn't seem to be a good idea for anybody to get into that infomercial business, and I hadn't heard about that. So
yeah, well, at the end of the presentation that day, the young lady that has filed the lawsuit, she was actually on a video praising the course the very day. Her attorney says that they did this, they got her on tape while she was still optimistic and unaware of the fact that she had been scammed. But who's getting scammed here? That's my question.
Yeah, that could be selective editing. You don't know when that was when that tape was made. So I don't know the specifics here.
I love Donald Trump. He is definitely somebody that I look up to, and it's funny people say he's an actor, he's acting. It's all he's all a big show, but you know what? He's got a lot of good ideas. He says a lot of things that make a lot of sense.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Donald Trump for president. What do you think?
I don't think he's going to be president, but I think he can shape the dialogue. He has the ability to do that. He gets out there in front of certain business questions and he forces people to address them. His China he's spoken about, and he's had a lot of dealings with them. And
do you think he would be a better president than the president and administration that we have now?
I hope so. I would think he would be. I'm not a huge fan of the current administration, but...
What's your biggest problem with the current administration?
Well...
One thing, if you had one thing they could have done different to make...
This is the real estate a real estate show, so
Yep.
we'll talk about real estate.
Yep.
Just the instability of the market, that there's been just one thing after another just comes along, and people don't feel confident moving forward. You had the mortgage program last year, the $8,000 first time
tax
home buyer
credit.
tax credit.
Yep.
Once that expired, that did not help.
Numbers went down.
The
Yep.
numbers crashed right after that. So I think if they would just back off and let the market correct, that would be the best way to go forward. Stop tinkering with the real estate market, and
I think they need to tinker more with it. I think they need to focus more on it myself. When they did that, it was a little bit of a help. Temporarily a help. It seems like they're worried about a lot of other things, and now that they've got Bin Laden and the birth certificate out of the way, there's a damn election coming up, so they're not going to have time to worry about our country. They got to get reelected.
Well, I'm hoping that the re-election will focus them, because if the real estate business doesn't come back, I mean, the real estate kind of led the crash of our economy, and hopefully it will lead us back to improvement of our economy. So get focused, take care of real estate, or just back off. Whatever the case is, we need to have real estate recover to give people confidence moving forward.
And people need houses and a place to live. That's for
Absolutely.
sure.
There's a lot of pent-up demand out there.
There's a lot of foreclosures on the market too right now, and that's a big problem. We were talking about that last week, how this crisis problem is probably going to get worse because of all the pent-up foreclosures that haven't even come on the market. The foreclosure numbers are expected to raise, but there's a backlog of them that haven't even come through. And I just watched a little article from NBC News, and they're saying they called it the real faces of foreclosure. A lot of people think that people just bought over their heads and were never in a position, and the banks loaned the money, and shame on the banks, and the people took the money, and shame on the people, and shame, shame, shame. But the bottom line is it breaks down a little bit different than that, and we're going to talk about that here in a minute. They're talking about a man, he had gotten a tumor. The market turned and things slowed down for him. Then the man got a tumor and he lost all of his income. His wife's income was barely $15,000 a year. They fell behind on their mortgage. They started sending payments in again once they had some money saved up. The payments were rejected. Their attorney says that the bank would not work with them and just started foreclosure proceedings. And the bank's response was, we want the full note, or we're going to foreclose. What's the perception? As a realtor, I know what my perception is. What's the perception outside of?
Well, the perception is that the banks aren't loaning money, and there are programs in place, but the programs aren't effective, and that's why before I had mentioned about backing off. If you have these supposed programs in place that are going to renegotiate notes or mortgages, and then they can just blow it off and not even deal with these people.
Well, that's exactly what's happening.
That's not right. Why even have the program if there's no enforcement mechanism to renegotiate? So those people's hands are tied, and there's just so many instances like that with foreclosed homes. And until those are dealt with, this trend is going to continue where we're kind of lagging along in the real estate business.
Stay flat or going down, and it's certainly not coming up with all this stuff backlogged. In Delaware in particular, we have House Bill 58. They're working on the foreclosure mediation program. They recently added an opt-out option on this bill. Otherwise, it would have required delinquent borrowers and lenders to meet. The bill does require lenders to send a decision maker, have a decision maker available by phone or in person, available immediately to meet with these folks. But if you don't want to save your house, or you've already moved out, or before they're about to foreclose, this is not going to force you to meet with those folks if you don't want to. They're adding this opt out.
And that's a state program?
That's a state program. A representative from Mid-Atlantic Financial Services said that they do extensive preparations for mediation conferences, and they get prepared, and then a lot of times the homeowner is a no-show. So the banks say, well, we show up and then you guys don't come, and then so they're just trying to justify why they don't want to work with people, and it's really it seems just so unfair. I don't want to be a bleeding heart over here, but
there's blame to go around on that. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of speculators that got in there and they just bought and walked away from deals. So that's probably the situation they're referring to. Those type of people walked away and didn't feel bad about it at all. And then you have the other people that genuinely need help. So the program, it's valuable in some instances. So I don't know. There needs to be some kind of happy medium there.
Well,
it sounds like they're trying to address it on a state level. So that's good. And if they have the realtors and the realtor community involved with that's a good thing.
I know I've been to a handful of these foreclosure workshops, and to my shock, the state officials are telling people, don't leave the house. Save your money. Get prepared, for your next move. There's still a chance. A lot of people don't realize there is a chance that their house can be saved. If they force the bank to sit down and mediate with you, then there's a chance you can be saved. If you don't want to be saved, you can opt out on that. But the things that they're telling folks to do, I would have never believed that they would say. I thought they would, the bank says you got to pay or you got to go. So here comes the foreclosure with the sheriff, and they're going to kick you out in the street. But that's not the case. It seems like when Obama and his administration were coming in, they really had the lower and middle class people interest at their in their hearts. But for everything that's going on, it seems like they've been ignored. I mean, some people choose to live a modest lifestyle, and those people are satisfied with serving other people in a small capacity. They're working for the small business guy, the small business owner, the pizza shop, the real estate book. And these businesses serve consumers by delivering a service or good of some type, who is usually manufactured by a larger company, a larger business. And then those companies are usually financed by banks. And everything works like that. When the bank stops lending, by the way, the bank that holds the note on your house, if you're in the lower middle class, small business owners, and the people that work for them, when they stop lending, the bigger companies, a lot of times they have to pull back and trim up their budgets and trim up their belts, and they tend to lay workers off and raise their costs to cover the expenses that the extra expenses that they incur to try and minimize their losses on their profits. Then your poor and middle class folks, your consumers, they all start to feel the pressure.
That's right. It's unintended consequences. If you hurt the big players on the top end and you don't lend to them or to the mid-level players.
That's the other side. Now that the manufacturers and the bigger companies, they have to raise their costs and be more efficient. The small guy, he's got to pay more, the small business owner, and he also has to lay people off. But if there's no financing available, a lot of those guys get shut down. Now, I understand the other side of this. We're thinning the herd. Only the strong survive. But it seems like the guy that holds the note on the house is putting a lot of people out of business indirectly, and then he's able to come back and take their property. And it's like these poor folks. I don't even know where they were, but that I saw on NBC News. These people, they only owe $40,000 for their house, and I don't think that that's a lot of money to owe left on a property. But they live to serve these people, and now these people won't even talk to them because they missed a few payments. It just seems like such a horrible crisis to me. I think the government needs to step up, and I'm glad to see that here in Delaware, our government and our officials are doing things. And I'm surprised at the advice that they're giving them, but I think it's the right advice. They're certainly not on the side of these banks anymore, because I don't think they are. They seem like they're trying to help the people, but the administration sure seems to help the banks with TARP money and things like that. It just, they could have probably paid off half the houses in the United States.
Well, yeah, and that was the TARP was supposed to help with the mortgages, and it was supposed to directly benefit that program, and it never happened. So the real estate business just still took a dive after that TARP program. I had great hopes based on what they had originally intended that money for, that it was supposed to take care of those bad real estate notes, securities, whatever.
It took care of the bank side of it.
It took care of the bank side. It helped their bottom line, but they didn't use it for what it was supposed to be used for, which was writing off bad debt. That whole fiasco. But it was not used for what it was supposed to. So it was kind of a waste, unfortunately, and it just delayed the inevitable settling of the market. And this has been going on for 4, 5, 6 years now. So I don't know what the solution is, but
one solution that I suggest is that agents show more of these bank-owned properties. If they're on the market, take your clients out there. Just show them. You're not steering them. You're just saying, hey, here's another option, here's another option, here's another option. Would you like to take a look? And I would even encourage them to make the offer, even if it's a ridiculously low offer. Now, the other agents that hold these properties are going to hate me for this, but you know what? I have had bank properties where a $60-some thousand property, because of a few minor thing, or a few, I should say, major things that were there, just made it totally undesirable to the end user. So the only guy interested was a contractor. So I said, you know what? They want to get this property off their books. Let's get some offers in the door. And the property sold for just over $30,000. Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunity out there too. You really have to look for it. The downside is, actually, right now, if you can come up with the money, there is no downside, because with the way those properties are, you make your money where you buy. So if you can get in and get the money, right now is a good time. And last week, Chris Rowe was here with us, and we learned that there is a lot of financing that is available for these rehab loans, available for these type of properties that are derelict. They've been sitting a couple of years because people would miss a couple of payments, like these folks here. Sometimes it was a newer property to them, and they really didn't have any emotional attachment to the house, and they ran out the door and stuck their head in the sand. And the house sits 2 years before the bank can foreclose and get to it, and now it's full of mold and it's ruined. So,
yeah, from my perspective as not being a realtor, I'm not really aware that all those properties are out there. My understanding was that the bank was holding back on some of these properties and didn't have them out for sale. So if they are for sale,
there's plenty of them out there.
The word needs to get out.
The problem is the banks
under market value properties available for sale,
and there's a lot of over market price properties, even in the bank-owned world. The bank doesn't want to hear that, though. If the bank knew that that you as an agent were pricing their properties over the market versus under, they might be a little disappointed with you. From my experience, they would prefer to see the lower number, knowing that property is going to sell and that money's coming in the door for them. So don't be afraid to put in low ball offers, or what I would call a fair offer. If you think the agent's overpriced it, tell the agent why, so that he can go back to the bank and say, hey, look, this contractor is interested, or this end user is interested, and here's what they're willing to pay, and here's why. And that's what I've done several times with the bank, and the bank has come back. An initial response would be, there's no way that's going to happen. Next thing you know, the deal's approved, and that's
what needs to happen all across the board. There needs to be some incentive put in place to clear them out. If they take a temporary loss, in the end, they're going to gain, because that property will be back, increase the value of that neighborhood, get things settled down again, and then prices will stabilize, and then maybe even go up in the long run.
So laws are coming into place to force lenders to meet with delinquent borrowers. If you're not interested in saving your house, you're not going to have to be in on that. If you're an agent out there and you see these houses on the market, Get your people in front of them. The other side is it's taken banks so long they have a backlog. There's going to be a lot of properties just sitting there. They can't get to them fast enough. I know 2 or 3 in particular that I'm watching and waiting for something to happen on. One's been 6 years before I ever had my real estate license. It was foreclosed on. Actually, it wasn't even foreclosed on. The guy gave the deed back to the bank, and the bank has done nothing with it.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
It is amazing, and I don't understand how that's happening. But that's the kind of stuff that the banks are confused. They're lost. Things get lost in the shuffle, and there's just so much of it. That's a sign of what's going on. A property sitting 5 or 6 years with no activity when the people didn't even allow the bank to foreclose. They just gave the deed back. It just doesn't make any sense. So what do you think? Is it people borrowing over their head, or is it the banks loaning out money to people they shouldn't have, or is it people losing their jobs? What's more the bottom line here?
Well, I think it's just all those things are true, but it's just a general perception that nobody knows what's going to happen. So nobody feels confident, or not nobody. There's still a lot of activity going on, but nobody feels extremely confident on where we're going from here. So until that stabilizes, whether through an election or just general perception that this situation is stabilized, then we can move forward.
All right, well, I got some tips for some folks who may be facing a foreclosure, headed to foreclosure, in a foreclosure. Number 1, don't stick your head in the sand. Talk to somebody. Call someone, whether it's your bank or the state banking commissioner or NCall, who is a state agency that will help you get through this. The bottom line is you got to remember there's another side to this. You will get through this. Your health is not worth losing over a house. Okay? The state banking commissioner can be reached at 302-739-4235. They have a website. It's www.banking.delaware.gov. That's Gov. NCall, they're a state agency with counselors that will help you with a foreclosure or a modification. Just get you information. 302-678-9400. Nothing is the worst thing that you could do. You've got to do something. Another thing they're going to tell you is to not bail on the home. Stay put. Save your money. It could and most likely will be 12 to 24 months before they're able to foreclose, unless they've got their process streamlined. Right now, it's backed up that long. A lot can happen in 2 years. You could get a new job. You may get over an illness. Whatever your circumstances are now, they may change. Chances are the bank is going to sell your loan to a collector if they cannot foreclose on it in time. That collector may be in a position where he is more willing to work with you on modifying your loan than the original bank. The original bank would probably appreciate your default, and then they collect the TARP money and they collect insurance, sell off the loan, and then get TARP money to make up the difference. They've really lost nothing at that point. So stay put in your home. They will work on and help you modify your loan if that's what you want to do. At worst, you're going to sit there and bank some money as much as you can. You're going to have to move. If you're going to get foreclosed on, or if you're not interested in saving your home, you may as well save some money and have less stress going forward. The bottom line is don't stress yourself. The home is not worth your health. You are in the worst financial crisis in this country's history. Banks cut off cash flow to consumers and businesses, and now every market has been affected. Most are devastated and still in shambles. Jobs have been and continue to be lost, and Americans are struggling like never before. So a lot of people feel bad, guilty, shame. Everybody is in your situation feels that. And I want you to know there is help out there. There are people out there looking out for you, and there is hope. It may or may not be in our current administration, but the people that are here in Delaware that are working for you are doing everything they can. So on the Delaware Real Estate Show, we're going to spin this around. And some of the things, there are a lot of things that people can do to make a difference. You might not think there's anything you can do as a consumer, or whether you got to sell or you buy or you're in a bad situation with your house. There are things that you could do to improve the situation, especially real estate agents. Some of the real estate sales practices that we are partaking in could be changed, addressed. Some people still think it's 2007 or 2006 or 2005, and we can price the property high and the market will come to us. That's just not the case. Today, that's called buying a listing. If you go to a property and the owner would like $300,000 and you have clearly and communicated to them that they need to ask $250,000, maintain your integrity and do not take the listing for $300,000. My approach is this: Mr. Seller, I would love to help you sell your house for $300,000. Unfortunately, the market will not bear more than $250,000. If we put it up for $300,000, we will most likely have very little or no showings and most likely get no offers. And when we go to adjust the price, the market trend is going down. So when we adjust it from $250,000 later to sell today, it may be $240,000 or $235,000. So if you would like to get as much as possible, you may want to price it correctly to begin with. You have to communicate this and explain why. In a declining market, as an agent, you have certain obligations and responsibility. It is your job to meet the needs of your client. Now, if the client needs 10 to 20% more than the market will bear, we need to find out why and then bring them to the reality that the market is what it is. We're just the messenger. We got to make sure that we get the point across. There are just way too many overpriced properties out there. Stop. Don't take the listing unless it will sell. Otherwise, you're helping to bring the market down further. You're bringing another property on the market that's not going to sell. We have an overabundance of inventory. You're going to increase the long-term inventory. We do not need that. If you could take and go through your inventory and get rid of any properties that are certainly not going to sell, it would help the market. And if every agent did that, I'm sure there's one or two properties they could do. Another mistake that we make, and I'm guilty of this just as well as everybody else, Brian, and that's avoiding short sales. And I have bank owns too, because a lot of people think a short sale and a bank own. I'm surprised at the amount of agents that don't know the difference between a short sale and a bank owned property. Short sales do take a long time. Instead of avoiding them, I'm telling my clients, the bottom line is this may take a while to get a response on. If we're really shopping for a property, let's put an offer in on it and then keep shopping. You may find something you like better next week. So don't avoid those short sales. They're part of our crisis and they're part of our problem too. We need to move those properties on right now. Bank-owned properties are different than short sales in that the bank-owned properties have been foreclosed on and the bank has control of the properties. These are great for your investors. They are very quick and easy and fun. You can get an answer on the property very quickly. The downside is everything's ready to go. You've done all your work. You got your financing if you needed it. You got your inspections if you needed it. Settlement day comes. And what happens, Brian?
The bank changes their mind and requires more documentation.
No, that's a short sale. That can happen in a short sale. Or your commission can get cut in a short sale. Those are reasons that agents avoid short sales, but those are part of the problem. We got to move those along too. The worst side of a bank-owned situation is that a lot of times the bank hasn't recorded the deed properly, so they don't have a deed that they can sell you. So you did everything that you can do, and God forbid, if you're not on your settlement date, if you're not ready to go on your settlement date, there's a clause in their contracts that usually costs you $100 a day for every day that you're not ready. But if they're not ready for 2 months, right, you can walk away if you want and you'll get your money back, but you can't charge them. So the banks still put everything in their favor, and you got to play that way if you want to play the game. But
a lot of patience.
A lot of patience. And if you read that bank, when you submit your Delaware real estate contract offer, you will get a response offer on a whole nother contract that heavily leans in the bank's favor. So just be prepared. Don't be scared. That's just the game that you got to play. Another thing that agents have got to understand, and if you don't take it from me, look into it yourself, get your broker or someone to help you and show you why. Don't tell your people, don't let your people believe that the market will improve next year. If it does, that's great. We hit the lottery. I don't know what the hell we did to make that happen. But, okay, right now we have almost 3 years worth of inventory. You know what that means? You know how the inventory system works?
Yeah, it should be maybe about 4 to 6 months in an ideal market.
Market.
And for 3 years, that's
almost at 3 years. So that basically says if me and my friend realtors here in Kent County, we don't take any more listings, we're going to sell what we got and then start over. It will take almost 3 years to do that. The fact is we're taking more listings every month than we're selling. So the market is it's still increasing. So it looks like next year, with the trend of these declining values and our job situation, the market is still expected to decline. The advantage that you have as a real estate agent is that creates what? Urgency. Urgency. Here's a real important way for you to create urgency. And for me, it's an important way to find out if I have a real seller in front of me or not. Because if I'm telling him we need to get 250 now or take 235 later, and he still wants to go for 3, the next thing I talk about with them is something that a lot of agents overlook altogether, and that is one of the most important factors in helping somebody and selling a home, and that's their time frame. If the client doesn't have a time frame, we need to find out why they're trying to sell. Are they just trying to see what they can get for their property? Don't take that listing. Don't take that listing. Don't take that listing. I've been in many situations where I'm the second or third realtor, but I'm not the highest price guy. And unfortunately, I don't usually do the fancy presentation with the nice folder and the nice folded edge and the cover page. I bring MLS sheets and I write notes on the back of them. And I'm a real nuts and bolts guy. This is where we are, and this is why you need to be priced here. And 90% of the time, I get the listing on my very first appointment. They're signing the paperwork. I think it's just being honest with them, setting them up for certain things that are going to happen in the market that could happen, and then exceeding those expectations, doing everything a little bit better than I can, and that's helped me out a lot. But you got to be honest with your folks. They'll appreciate it later. As a matter of fact, I just sold a property for some folks that did not like my price. They went with another agent for 6 months. At the end of the 6 months, I called them when their property expired. They said they wanted me to manage the property and rent it for them because I knew I did that. After I met with them, I brought some numbers out. I said, look, you can sell this property, because they wanted out of it. They were tired of it. They didn't want to rent it no more. They didn't get into it for that. They spent a bunch of money. They had emotional attachment to this property because they did a lot of work to it themselves. But I showed them that if they took action now, they could still get out. They lost probably $4,000 on the deal, but at the same time, they collected rent for 2 years. So they made out overall, and it was just off of their back. It was a pain in their, it was a pain in their back. It was something that they didn't really want to carry with them. So they appreciated the fact that initially I told them the truth. And then I followed up with them and made sure that, let them know I was still available. They wanted me to manage their property. They felt comfortable with me and they confident in me. And then I showed them that we could sell it, and we got it sold in this market. And, in the 60 days it was sold.
That's great. That's wonderful. That you stayed consistent with your values and they came back to you. That's important.
The bottom line is you got to be informed and educated as to what's going on in each particular market. Give your presentation to your client based on facts and numbers that you can back up. They'll appreciate your honesty even if they try another agent first. So don't be mad because they didn't pick you first. It doesn't always work out that way. The bottom line is It's our job to do everything in our power to stabilize and promote growth in this market, not bring in overpriced listings, pre-qualify buyers before you go taxiing them all over all over town. Price properties in front of the curve. Do you want to sell next? If they need to sell next or they need to sell in this market, they need to sell in the next 90 days, price their property in front of the curve to sell next. And encourage bank-owned tours. Let them people know that financing is available for these properties. The foreclosure market isn't the only thing that's going on in the real estate world. We're here today with Brian O'Rourke of the Real Estate Book, and I'm Al Escobar, and you've been listening to the Delaware Real Estate Show. We will be right back.